All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to GlucoseZone Live. My name's Justin. I'm here with Andrew.
Hey, guys.
We're going to get started with this awesome topic tonight, I Heart My Diabestie. So, Andrew, if you want to get us started with just telling us what a diabestie is.
Well, first we got a shout out to Claudette. You forgot Claudette coming in with this amazing story about joining us in the GlucoseZone, and Jeanette joining us as well.
Yes. We do want to give a big shout out to both of you ladies in the chat, and we want to just recognize that we do see your commitment every single week in the GlucoseZone, and we appreciate what you said, Claudette, about having us as your support system, and I think it's important to realize that essentially what you said is defining what a diabestie is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, having the support system and somebody there for you in your diabetes, that's what we're all about here, and you guys help us, you fuel us, and it's great to hear that stuff coming back. So Justin, what's a diabestie to you?
So a diabestie to me is somebody that you can essentially lean on and share, whether it's your diabetes stories or just somebody that's there to support you moving forward with your diabetes journey. I know it's really frustrating, and I know we've definitely had some problems in the past, managing our diabetes, whether it's at work or at home, and diabestie is just somebody that's there for you and supports you with your diabetes.
Do you text your diabestie when you're having a day?
I actually did text my diabestie today. I was having a little bit of a weird diabetes day today, so I think it's really important to just get that frustration out and really tell them what's going on, especially so they know.
Yeah.
And we also have Donnie Ray in the app. I always see Donnie Ray bopping around. Welcome back. We're happy to have you here tonight. Megan, what's going on?
Hey, Megan.
So if we just browse over to the chat, that's my diabestie right there, my girlfriend, Megan. She's always there, especially to support me with my diabetes, and always has been. And now if you want to tell us a little bit about your diabestie.
So my diabestie is Chrissy, who's my girlfriend. She's been there ever since I was diagnosed 4 years ago. She was in the hospital room the entire time. She calls me in the middle of the night if she thinks that something is going wrong, because I wear a Dexcom. So she's on my notification list. I'm not sure, is your diabestie on the notifications?
Thank God, no.
Oh, really?
But I feel like Andrew said before we went live, that it's funny that he thinks our diabesties actually worry about our diabetes more than we do. And it's funny because it's true. And I think that when we take a step back and look at what somebody, just whether it's a friend, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, somebody that's just there with you saying, just to watch after your diabetes, it's very important to appreciate them as well, because it sometimes could be harder to, live with somebody or be with somebody that has diabetes, and we appreciate that for sure. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. It's like when we go for a walk, Chrissy is asking me how my blood sugar is. She is constantly asking, do you need my snack when I walk is a Snickers,
nice.
But
nice.
She's constantly making sure that I'm okay, because she sometimes knows that I get tunnel vision when I go low, just like a lot of people living with diabetes, and we don't always recognize that we're in this state. So the diabestie, in my case, is somebody who's always there as a sanity check, asking me, are you actually okay, Andrew?
So I want to give a shout out to my Aunt Lorraine as well, who's popping around. I'm sure she's live she's with us on Facebook as well. So I think that being, whether you're in the app or joining us live, I consider people that just our audience as our diabesties, especially Andrew's been diagnosed, 4 years now?
Yeah, 4 years now.
And I've been diagnosed with type 1 for 14 years, and it's definitely something that, especially being diagnosed 2 totally different times in our life, it's very frustrating, especially I was diagnosed when I was 8. You were diagnosed at what age?
27.
Yeah, it's definitely a very confusing time. No matter what the age, you ask yourself, why me? And it's really important to have that support system as well.
Yeah, no, when I was first diagnosed, actually, Charlie was probably my first diabestie. I met him 2 weeks
really?
after I was diagnosed.
I actually didn't even know that.
I was prescribed the program, and I met him actually where we're sitting right now. In this room. And for about a year, he was always there for me on text message. I would call him. So a lot of you guys watching, I've had a lot of the similar experiences of Charlie helping me in ways that he's helped you. And he's really been an incredible person. But you need to find that diabestie who's there all the time and can call you in the middle of the night and make sure that you're good and wake you up and
absolutely.
be there for you when you're down as well.
It's important to understand too, if you don't have somebody that you can rely on as your diabestie, it's important to just put yourself out there and let it be known that you are somebody living with diabetes, and it's really important to have a support system behind you. And Claudette actually said that her diabestie is her younger sister, Jacqueline, who's always behind her. And I think that definitely goes a really long way in terms of having somebody that you can rely on and having that support system. And, moving forward, we're going to go into, vacationing with your diabestie, or just things in general that make it so much easier to have somebody that is either like Andrew and I just working together with diabetes, or somebody that knows how you react living with diabetes in general. So
yeah, it's really important having Justin at work, where if we have a bunch of people living with diabetes here, we all act as a support system, right? When one of us needs something, there's very frequently people coming into each other's offices going, hey, can you help me out with this? I forgot so-and-so.
Oh yeah, Andrew's definitely hooked me up with insulin a couple of times, and vice versa, especially living such, hectic lives to begin with, and in general, it's very important to have somebody. And of course, we understand that in all cases, you might not have somebody that could, help you with medication, or of course, that's completely understanding, but just somebody that can be there to support you, especially living with diabetes, is really important. So
I actually have a question for Claudette. I was wondering if you'd be willing to share a story about your sister being your diabestie. We'd love to hear about a time that she really helped you out.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
That'd be really interesting.
Because Justin and I were talking about this before, and so often our stories matched up, and I'm curious to see if everybody around the world, their diabestie has the same experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to just having somebody that supports you, our lovely certified diabetes educator typed up little bullet points that we could go over beforehand. And she was asking me, I didn't know really why she was asking me, but she asked me how many times I check my blood sugar on average. And, before my CGM, I said about 5 to 8 times. And she actually came up with the figure of, in the 14 years, I've checked my blood sugar over 21,000 times. And I think that is definitely a wear and tear over, whether it's a day or just checking your blood sugar in general. And I think it's important to have somebody that can help you through that, and, to remind you maybe to check your blood sugar when you're running low or if you're acting a little off. And I think that if you want to share maybe a story of one time you went on vacation and how your diabestie played a role in that, and we could move from there.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to share a story of us going on a vacation. And my diabestie, Chrissy, we went up to Mont-Tremblant, Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And it was negative 40, if you can believe that. I took her up for Valentine's Day, so this would be the 2-year anniversary coming up of
freezer out.
Not the best trip to take, but we decided we were going to be very active that trip, which, as living with diabetes, we know that can be a challenge.
Yeah,
we were going to go skiing and snowshoeing, and one of the days we went snowshoeing, and we got there, and the trail guide said, oh, we'd like to do a nice easy trail. It's negative 40 degrees. We're out there. We're not Antarctica explorers. Right? And the trail guide sent us up this 6-kilometer up a mountain, saying it was a nice easy trail. And like I said earlier, Snickers is my hiking snack, and unfortunately I went through 5 Snickers, and by the time I got to the top, I was still at a 50 blood sugar, and my diabestie thought she was going to carry me down off the mountain. But she was there the whole way with me, and she really helped me down and made sure that I was actually okay and was ready to help me, because if I didn't have somebody who knew my diabetes, that would be a problem.
Of course. So thank you to Andrew for sharing that, and thank you for Claudette for sharing this. She said her sister was the person who told her to go to the doctor 22 years ago because she read an article in the paper about diabetes and saw that she had all the symptoms, and she went, and it turns out she did have diabetes. So I think that before Claudette was even put in that situation, her sister was ready to go right off the bat and taking that duty of being somebody that supports you. And it's so important. We can't go on that more, that it's just so important to have somebody that's there for you, whether it's just a family member, a friend, somebody that you can talk to about your diabetes struggles, because every day is different with your diabetes. I went from 300 today and I'm hanging around 80 right now. So you don't feel good when that happens. So it's important that, whether it's Andrew or I'm talking to him before we're going live, like, he's like, you want to have a juice? You sure you have this? Like, I don't want you passing out on me when we're going live. So I think it's just somebody that you could talk to and get your point across and share your struggles with and your goals is really important. So
I think it's like all about being stress-free when sharing as well.
Absolutely.
Like I don't feel any stress sharing my diabetes
Definitely
with
not.
Justin. It's totally a non-judgment zone, and like just getting real advice. If we want real advice, we share it, and that's really important in finding a support system.
Absolutely. And I think that when we talk about just living with diabetes in general, it's so stressful to begin with. And I think, like Andrew said, it's really important not to focus on that stress. Now, let's say you don't have a diabetes, you don't have somebody that you can talk to about the stress, whether you just write it down and just go back and reflect on it, how you did with your diabetes that day, so you can go back and really thrive on your support. And you can look at your numbers and say, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that. And eventually down the road, I think that you'll have somebody that is there to support you and be with you along the way.
Yeah, and I think it's also, when talking and looking for the diabesity, opening up to other people that you might not expect and talking with them sometimes helps see a reflection. I had one experience lately with someone we work with named Matt, and we had a really deep conversation about sleeping with diabetes, and he said, he noticed some changes in me, and it was opening up to him about that specific issue that we created a connection and understanding. Right. And now I know that Matt understands my diabetes a little bit more.
Yeah,
so opening
absolutely.
up really helps.
I think that, sleeping with diabetes in general is a huge topic, and especially, with me. And I've had 2 hypoglycemic episodes that have put me in the hospital. So sleeping, it was funny, like I was talking with Charlie the other day, I wonder what it would be like to just go to bed. Just not have to worry about your numbers before bed. And I think that with me having my diabesity, Megan, to just talk to and say, I'm going to bed at 100, let's just say I cut my pump off for an hour, I may be waking up in the middle of the night, or she's always there to just check on me. And I think that puts a lot of stress on them as well. Of course, we're talking about our girlfriends in this instance, but just in general, to have somebody there. Of course, nobody wants to see that, the last result of, God forbid, having a diabetic seizure or anything like that. And I think that's important to just be really aware, and especially moving forward with your diabetes and as you continue to grow just as a person in general. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important as well. And I didn't know that actually about you, that you had those episodes. Mm-hmm. And that's actually one of my fears, is going to sleep and having a problem while sleeping. I have very low numbers around 2 a.m. very frequently, and that's one of the biggest struggles that I personally have with diabetes. And my diabesity helps me with that because she sees my numbers, right? Yeah,
and I've been actually dealing with some frustrating, if you've been following along with the 10 a.m. live streams, I've been having a little bit of a challenge this past week and a half with dealing with my blood sugars being higher after I exercise. And I think that it's due to the fact that I'm not eating in the morning. So of course, girlfriend knows best. My diabestie was telling me that it's important that I do eat on a regular basis, and just to have somebody that, whether it annoys you at first or not, just to really reiterate that. And I've actually been having just a little small meal in the morning, and it's been helping me a significant amount. And I do just want to shout out my family that's tuning in and watching, to the Emmons family and the Bothner family. Thank you and welcome to this diabetes talk. So now, if Andrew, you want to talk about maybe another story that has really helped you, maybe not with Chrissy, maybe some friends in the past, whether it's a night out or just in general in college, something that has helped you just thrive with a Diabestie?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think back to my support system of I tell all my friends what is going on before we go and do the activity. We go hiking a lot. So that hiking and my diabetes, right around the halfway point, I tend to have a big crash, right? So just letting them know actually right before we go that this is going to happen. I'm going to have to stop at the halfway point. I'm going to have to eat, and we're going to have to take like a 5 to 10 minute break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And they all understand that. I also think back to like my family is like they're definitely Chrissy, she's there every moment, but the family is coming up right behind them of always making sure that I'm getting my care, almost to the point that I wish they would care a little less.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's a big part too of when you're dealing with somebody living with diabetes, and just us being people living with diabetes and having that support system. It's almost so good to the point where I feel like we can get annoyed by it. Yeah. And I think that stress gets misinterpreted, especially whether our blood sugar is low or high, or we just keep getting asked, do you want a snack? Are you feeling okay? And I feel like we take that.
Should you eat this?
Should you eat this is my personal favorite.
Can't stand it.
that is definitely a pet peeve for me, and I think that it's hard because a lot of people living with diabetes face that every day.
Right.
But rather than getting frustrated and going right at them with that, I think we need to take a step back and almost appreciate that, because it is stressful for family members and for friends. Especially living with diabetes. I put my roommate through hell freshman year, waking up in the middle of the night, super low, he just waking up and I'm just there, just sucking down on a juice box or something. It's really important to voice that to them, your appreciation, and just tell them what, God forbid, there's the snacks, I keep them there, and
what
just
do you
moving
say
forward.
when somebody, how do you deal with it? We all have our own way.
Right.
I'm curious how you deal with the question. You shouldn't eat this.
Right. So it all goes back to people categorizing people living with diabetes as just, overweight, and it's just not really where that needs to go. It's really unfortunate, because going back to some of the topics we've talked about before is some people, when you talk about pre-diabetes and type 2, are actually those people living with diabetes are people that have such a busy life. So when somebody asks me, is it okay for you to eat this? I explain to them that, whether my sugar is good or it's not good, or, I don't look at it like a test, but of course I think it's important to explain to them that you can eat that, or like whether you want it or you don't want it, but it's all personal preference. And if you do want it, it's important to explain to them, I can't eat this. And if that really does make you feel uncomfortable, I don't think they would feel a little bit offended. I don't think they would be offended if you just said like, oh, could you rephrase this a certain way or something like that. So I know that that's definitely a big problem in today's society, the can you eat this or should you have this? And I think that moving forward, it's really important to understand that use that stress that you're put in and tell your diabestie about it. Tell your friends about it, and make sure that it doesn't keep coming up moving forward. And I think that they're there ultimately to help you. So
I think that's a great way of dealing with that question. It feels like such a pinpointed question when it first comes off, and you have to just let it go.
Just let it roll off.
Just let it roll off and make a joke about it later.
Right, exactly. So we actually have Steve coming at us from YouTube asking, have we ever had any foot issues or neuropathy due to diabetes? And I thank God, Andrew and I both can say no.
But do you go to the podiatrist? Do you care about and make sure that you're taking care of all these diabetic issues?
I definitely do go to the podiatrist, and I think it's so important to just be aware. Diabetes is all about awareness, whether your blood sugars, what your blood sugars are, the medications you're on, and just the side effects that could result in poorly taking care of diabetes. So I think it is important to have, the podiatrist, to have us as a support system if you need us. And just moving forward, just like I said, we keep going back to that support system, but I think that it really is so important.
When you were diagnosed, you were diagnosed pretty young. How did you find your support system?
So right off the bat, my family was absolutely tremendous, and I know some of them are watching, so I do want to thank all of you guys. And it's definitely, you know, of course you take a look back when you are diagnosed, even just being diagnosed 4 years ago, you take a look back and you do ask yourself, why me? I almost take it as a blessing that I was diagnosed so young, because essentially it's all I've ever known. Being diagnosed at the age of 8, you know, of course, and growing up with the memories around it, I really did have an amazing support system with my family. And as I went further in asking about, you know, with Megan, and she supports me, and I think that it's really important just to, you know, just really be aware of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Finding that support system initially is how you got to get through this disease.
Absolutely. So we have a question from Steve Jones, and he asks, do you drink Diet Coke, Justin? Would that affect your diabetes? So I do drink Diet Coke.
And he sometimes makes me drink
and
one,
I
too.
sometimes really twist Andrew's arm to drink one also. And I think that it does affect my diabetes personally, just in terms of, you know, I try not to drink soda. It's really hard for me. I am trying to make the switch over to seltzer. And it's definitely happening, but it's definitely a good question. Yes, I do drink Diet Coke, but I am trying to pace myself with it. And then, so we have, I don't want to butcher your name, so I will not try to pronounce that. But they wrote, and my friend had a dead toe probably because of chronic diabetes and was amputated. So, you know, going back, it's definitely
it's very real.
It's very real, and it's really unfortunate because you want to take care of your diabetes from the start. Once you find out that you do have diabetes, it's really important to make those phone calls and see the podiatrist and just.
And don't forget the eyes as well.
The eyes are
very important. When I was diagnosed, the reason I knew or I had an issue was I started losing my eyesight. Right? I couldn't see. If me and Justin were looking at each other, I wouldn't be able to see Justin. So it's really important to pay attention to your eyes, your toes, and all of your medical care. It's all related. The dentist, that's another great one.
I've been having some trouble with the dentist for sure.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah,
we've had some adventures with that.
You definitely want to go and get checked for what, you know, just your daily checkup with your teeth. Get your eyes checked every once in a while. I think it's a couple months you're supposed to get them checked. Same thing with your feet. It's just to just be aware of the signs and symptoms. And I don't want anybody watching to be afraid and think that it is going to happen to them. But of course, all of these issues and things that come up are just so much easier to handle if you can catch them before they get, you know, dangerous. And I think that's so important to pay attention to.
I think it's letting go of the fear. You have to be able to let go of the fear and live your life, and then control your diabetes. Because if you're stressing about your diabetes all the time, well, stress can naturally raise your blood
It's
sugar
a
levels.
catch-22.
It's a catch-22 right there, right?
Yeah, so I think that it is really important to, when referring to stressing with diabetes, it all comes back to just having somebody to lean on as a support system and talk to, whether, like, it could be one person, it could be a group of people. I'm lucky enough to have a very supportive family and friends that are always knowing what is going on with my diabetes, especially whether it's on a vacation or I just took a vacation a couple of years ago with I think there was 14 of us in like an Airbnb. And, you know, every single day I had friends asking me, like, how's your sugars? Whether we were we had like a little walk to the beach, so they were always just curious on how our sugars were doing. And I think that that's really important to monitor.
Now, Charlie always talks about being an ostrich, putting your head in the sand and ignoring it. Have you ever done that with your diabestie? And even though I know she's watching, you know, I know I have. And as
absolutely.
Well.
I think that just living with diabetes to begin with can be so difficult in the first place. So when you don't want to put that stress on your diabestie or your support system, it's definitely a common thing to bury it in the sand, like Andrew said, and just kind of not worry about yourself and just keep on keeping on. And I think that is not the right thing to do necessarily. And I know that I'm kind of playing the devil's advocate here because I've definitely done it multiple times, but I think that it is important to openly discuss with your diabestie how you're managing that day with your diabetes, how you've been doing and what your medications are, and just really just opening up to them and so they can help you in the long run.
And it's important to let them know what it looks like when you are putting your head in the sand. Like Chrissy knows exactly when I'm putting my head in the sand, and she pulls it right out for me, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
Megan does the same thing for you.
Yeah, I think that we definitely have different signs and symptoms, but it ultimately ties into, you know, how your support system sees you and recognizes your diabetes. And so I know for me, I get a little pale when my sugar runs low. So Megan's always aware of that. And I also do get a wee bit cranky, probably crankier than most, but it's definitely just something to be aware of. And after the fact, or even before the fact, just let them know. You don't have to bury your head in the sand. You could tell them, listen, my sugar's running a little bit low. Just give me a couple of minutes to get this together. So you kind of both avoid that confrontation or anything like that. So
I've got a great question for you here.
Don't stump me.
I'm going to stump you good right now. How do you appreciate your diabesity? How do you show appreciation for yours?
I mean, just living every day with your diabetes, it can be very complicated. So just showing your appreciation by simply thanking them and reflecting on times that they've really helped you, especially whether, I know Megan's ran like a half a mile when I was playing a softball game to get me like a bag of Skittles. It's just showing your support to your diabetes, especially in that moment, really just thanking them and being aware that, you know, it is frustrating, and it's just as frustrating on them too, especially as they're acting as almost a caretaker. And I think that that's really important to be aware of as well.
Yeah, no, it's so important to show appreciation to your diabesity because they go through a lot of stress too, worrying about you, running to go get you Skittles, right? And it's really important to show that you really appreciate what they do for you.
So I just want to mention one more thing, that people find that when they help others, they find themselves helping one another in the process. So I think it is really important to, if you are somebody living with diabetes and you know somebody else living with diabetes, really just talking to them in general and saying, I think that obviously we take it for granted working for a company that helps people living with diabetes, but there are a couple people in the company that we could really lean on one another, and I think a little bit of support goes such a long way. So for I can't tell what I'm getting my diabestie for Valentine's Day if my diabestie is watching.
Can't tell her that. I mean,
that's a silly question.
Right now. We can't spill the beans.
That's a silly question from our digital coach back there.
Yeah, our digital coaches are setting us up tonight, Justin.
I think it's a good time. We're just about on that 30-minute mark, so I think it's a great time to wrap it up and say to just keep on keeping on with your diabetes, utilize your support systems, and use those people around you to really just thrive with your diabetes.
And let's thank our Diabesties.
Of course,
and thank all our Diabesties tonight.
All right, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you all next time.
Yep, good night.